Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Lancaster. I am Israel Bufardi. I'm the minister of this congregation, and I use he, him for pronouns. And it's my pleasure to welcome all of you here this morning. We have a guest joining us who will be sharing with us in a little bit. They're up front. His name is David Garlock, and you'll hear more about him in a little bit. If you want to wave to the folks, you can. It's my distinct pleasure to welcome all of you here into our sanctuary, for the second time in a row in a while. Yay, that. Here at UUCL, as we like to call ourselves, we are a progressive spiritual community. And our mission is come, nourish the spirit, connect in love, and act for justice. That's what we are about here. At UUCL, as we like to refer to ourselves, love is our only doctrine, and service for justice are our most sacred prayers that we pursue here together in community. So we pray together by striving to live lives that affirm in words and in deeds that Black lives matter. And our doctrine of love has moved us to affirm for decades that love is divine and love is what makes a family. We gather here together because we need each other. That's why we come together in community. We recognize that this universe of ours and its truths are far too complex to be summed up in any one religious tradition's dogma. And so we need each other to reveal the pieces of the puzzle that are out there and in here and amongst yourselves to be discovered. So here, whether you believe in the healing power of nature, the transformative power of love, the fierce call of justice work, the enlightening discoveries of science, whether your preferred prophets and wisdom teachers post their messages on TikTok, carve them into stone tablets, mail them to newspaper or book editors, paint them on canvas, or discover them simply in the beauty of nature. Whether this traditionally ornamented sanctuary feels like a sacred home to you, or whether you're not quite sure how to feel about it. Whether traditional religion has harmed you, or whether your progressive experience of spirituality has broken the chains of patriarchy and white supremacy for your imagination. Or whether your truth is a far more complex one than can be named in these kinds of dichotomies. No matter what you bring and what type of connection and love you are looking for, you are welcome here, my friends. We especially welcome anyone who's new or joining us for the first, second, or third time, or fourth time, still kind of checking us out, feeling the waters. You're welcome to join us after the service for coffee and conversation outside on the sidewalk. We invite you to sign up for our newsletter by visiting our website. Or if you look in your pews, you'll find that there is a welcome card, and you're welcome to fill it out and drop it in the plate during the offering. As we get started, I just want to give you a couple of quick invitations today. The invitation to move if you need to get up and stretch, to dance or sing, whether or not you think you have rhythm. To light a candle if you need to. We have some candles up front here if you need to. If you feel moved at any moment and wish to come up and light a candle or place a stone into our well of community for yourself, please feel free. To text your loved ones or tweet if you need to, or retweet, or take a picture of us talking from up front and post it somewhere if you need to, but please do silence your cell phones. And now, as we prepare ourselves to enter into sacred space, we just take a moment to acknowledge the history of this land that we gather on today in this sanctuary. We are gathered on land once inhabited by people known as the Susquehannock and Conestoga, and we must remember the violent legacies of genocide, displacement, and settlement that have led to us being here in this room today. This land carries their memory and we remind ourselves to live humbly in relation with this land and with all of the indigenous peoples still living and loving on it. I light our chalice this morning, which is the symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith, the symbol of our Unitarian Universalist movement and commitments to love and justice. As I light our chalice this morning, I invite you to know this truth, that the chalice was created as a symbol during World War II for those escaping Nazi persecution. It was created as a symbol to remind ourselves of the need to provide a beacon for all of those who are experiencing marginalization and oppression. So when we kindle our flame, may it help us to promise ourselves and commit ourselves to create a more beautiful and just and loving and welcoming society that cares for and includes the needs and perspectives of all people, especially those who have been told by their government and by their society that they are not valued, that they are not loved, that they are not needed or even seen. May this light be for us this morning a beacon of who we are and what we are committed to. Will you join me in singing our opening hymn, Gather the Spirit? Number 347 in the gray hymnal. I invite you to rise in body or spirit, with rhythm or without, with raspy voices or without, and join in singing.
The Spirit harvests the power, our separate fires will kindle one flame. Witness the mystery of His hour. Our trials in this light appear all the same. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then. Gather in hope, compassion and strength. Gather to celebrate once again. Gather the spirit of heart and mind. Seeds for the sowing are laid in store. Nurtured with love and conscience refined, with body and spirit united once more. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then. Gather in hope, compassion and strength. Gather to celebrate once again. Gather the Spirit growing in all, drawn by the moon and fed by the sun. Winter to spring and summer to fall, the chorus of life resounding as one. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then. Gather in hope, compassion and strength. Gather to celebrate once again. We invited our guests to come here today
to talk to us a little bit about the decarceration movement. But I just wanted to reflect for a moment. I will let him speak for himself, but I just wanted to reflect for a moment on our commitments and why we have taken up this topic this morning and why we are inviting ourselves to think about it. We believe here, deeply, we say, in the interconnected web of all of existence, that each and every one of us are tied together in a garment of destiny, that each and every one of us are connected in what we do to the least thread, the thread that would be furthest down the outside and most frayed on that web, we do to all. And that when the web is torn, that it affects all of us in that web. We have in this country a system of incarceration where millions are behind bars. Millions are put away and forgotten about. And it amounts to a system of modern-day slavery. We have a system in this country of violence, a system in this country of forgetting about all of us. And so we remind ourselves as we reflect on the interconnected web this morning, a simple principle that actually comes from science that says every action has an equal and opposite reaction. And so we remember that when we create a society of violence and marginalization, we are causing the suffering, causing the violence that occurs, causing the things that occurs by not caring for all. Traditional justice and wisdom, even that comes from the sacred tradition, says that an eye for an eye. But we know today that an eye for an eye leads to a very, very short-sighted world. And so I ask us simply to reflect this morning while we are preparing ourselves to hear our speaker talk and teach us from his wisdom and his experience how to put more love into the equation, knowing that it will give us more love out. So for all that you bring here in this space, I invite you to take a moment to be with yourselves this morning, to think about all the various different ways that your heart feels blessed and feels broken this morning. To think about the love that you carry, that you have received, and the love that you have to give to this community and to others that you encounter in this life. For all that you are carrying, I invite you just to take a moment to be with yourselves in the pews. Sit upright if you need to, close your eyes if you need to, and return to the stability and the anchoring and the beauty of your own breath on this day. Remind yourself that you are alive, my friends. And that with each breath, you carry yourself forward into your future, in our collective future. That each breath is a gift given to you of one more precious moment to put love out into this world, to let yourself break open to it and flow out. And as you continue to breathe, I remind you that just as we are interconnected in our hearts, through our beliefs, we are literally interconnected by our breath on this beautiful planet, on this beautiful day. I invite you to join in our centering song, Spirit of Life, which is number 123 in the gray hymnal. You may remain seated.
Good morning. My name is Michelle Capobianco, and I'm a member of UUCL and the chair of the Justice with Mercy Committee. Justice with Mercy promotes an understanding within this congregation of the inherent worth and dignity of every human being, including returning citizens and individuals who serve community service in lieu of incarceration. Justice with Mercy also provides a grassroots connection to Lancaster County restorative justice programs. According to the Southern Poverty Law Center, restorative practices strengthen individual and community relationships to create a sense of belonging and provide a system of communal accountability that sets the stage for repairing harm. Restorative practices, in essence, replace systems that impose punishment and top-down systems of control on individuals in favor of a more communal, collaborative system of communication, expectation setting, and accountability. On behalf of the Justice with Mercy Committee and UUCL, I'm honored to welcome our guest speaker, David Garlock. David is a successful returning citizen who currently works as the PA state organizer for Straight Ahead, an organization working to build a decarceration movement both through statewide organizing of people impacted by carceral violence and direct lobbying to free people from prisons. I invite you to, if you think of any questions, to hold on to them because we're going to have a question and answer opportunity after this too. And with that, I welcome David. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Hey, how are you all doing this morning? So, are you guys wondering why I'm here to talk about justice and to talk about decarceration? Why would they choose me? Well, one of the main reasons they chose me is I do a lot of work in the state around reentry, around mass incarceration, but I'm also formerly incarcerated. So I served 13 and a half of a 25-year sentence for murder in Alabama. And that's why I'm so passionate about reentry. That's why I'm so passionate about criminal justice reform. And especially here in PA, as far as the work we're doing at Straight Ahead towards elders in prison and people serving life without parole. So you guys are probably wondering, like, wait, why did he go to prison for murder? And why did he only serve 13 and a half years? So the short story is my brother and I were sexually and physically abused by this gentleman for 8 years. When I was 19 and a half, my brother was 22 and a half. We made the irrational decision to take this gentleman's life. 4 months later, we were arrested, and we didn't have any money, so we had court-appointed lawyers, and the only thing they offered us was a 25-year plea, so we accepted it. And so after 13 and a half years, have any of you guys ever heard of Brian Stevenson? So Brian Stevenson is actually my lawyer. He helped my brother and me to gain parole, and Also, both my brother and I have received pardons now. So Brian Stevenson is a world-renowned lawyer who started an organization called the Equal Justice Initiative in Alabama. And when they started, their main goal was to help people on death row. And their organization has definitely evolved in a lot of things. Brian Stevenson wrote a book called Just Mercy, and it became a movie in 2020. Did any of you guys see me in the movie? If you watched the movie and you didn't see me, you need to go watch it again. We'll talk about that later. But when I was asked to talk about decarceration and justice, I wanted to find some scriptures to read. So the first thing is Micah 6:8. This is a perfect scripture that, even people who don't go to church know because of the power of it. And it says, "He has shown you, O man, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you? But to do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God." Another thing that I love is the African proverb that probably every one of you have heard. It takes a village to raise a child. And now, as I go through this conversation with you and talk, I'll say why that is so important and valuable to the work that we do for those who are coming home. In the Quran 5:8, it says, "Let not the hatred of a people swerve you away from justice. Be just, for this is closest to righteousness." And the Quran in 1690 says, "God commands justice and fair dealing." So I love the aspect that Reverend Israel talked about an eye for an eye. Because an eye for an eye is where our justice system is in the United States. It's all about retribution. When we think about when prison started in the United States, has anybody ever been to Eastern State Penitentiary in Philadelphia? Okay. What did they tell you, not you, Robin, the lady behind you, what did they tell you was the main purpose of Eastern State Penitentiary? And another thing is the longest sentence anybody received at Eastern State Penitentiary was 3 years. And they would walk the people in the middle of the night with a hood on them so they can't see the other people. And it was a solitary confinement cell, which I hate about that. That was one aspect I dislike about it. But when you think about it, this was a prison that was started by the Quakers, and the word penitentiary comes from the word penance, and that's what they wanted these individuals to do. They wanted them to reflect on their life. They wanted them to reflect on God and reflect on just that relationship and being able to be rehabilitated and restored and redeemed. But today, we have a lot of places, our prisons are called the Department of Corrections. In California, just last year, I think it was, they changed their name to the Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. So my thing is this, why are we giving people a life without parole sentence? Why are we giving them 175 years if these institutions were created to correct and to rehabilitate? Shouldn't we have shorter sentences that says, okay, you have served your time, you have paid the price for whatever offense you committed, now get out and be successful. But our system is all about punitiveness. It's about retribution. It's about punishment. A lot of people always ask me, they're like, David, how in the world did you get a 25-year sentence for what you did? Some people are like, you should have just gotten probation, or you shouldn't have gotten any time because of the trauma and the pain and everything you experienced. But I always tell people, I would have been okay with 5 years or something like that. I believe 25 years was extreme due to what had happened. And that goes into another point that we have to look at. Our criminal legal system I don't call it criminal justice system. I can either call it criminal legal system or criminal punishment system, because in my opinion, there's no justice to it. It's all about punishment, you know. Our system doesn't want to look at somebody as a victim and an offender. They just want to look at somebody as an offender, as somebody who has caused this great harm. And that's something that we have to look at, you know. We have to say, okay, why don't we want to look at somebody who has experienced all this trauma that has led them to commit an offense, you know? So how many of you have heard that saying, hurt people hurt people? A couple people, okay. My spin on that is, yes, hurt people, but helped people help people, and healed people heal people. And that's why I do the work that I do, because I can relate to these men and these women who are incarcerated, because I've done that. I got the t-shirts, you know. I can say, yeah, I've been there, you know. And they can relate to that, you know, and that's what's so powerful about it. But when we think about reentry, you know, the village proverb I talked about, it takes a village to raise a child. But David Garlock's proverb is it takes a village for a returning citizen to be successful. So it takes a person's family. It takes a community. It takes employers. It takes a place of faith. It takes support groups. So one thing that's really amazing about Lancaster is it has a returning citizens group that Kitty's involved with and been involved with for how many years now? 6 years. And I actually met Kitty back in 2017 when I was actually working out in Lancaster at New Person Ministries as a program director. And I mean, this organization is a support group for people that are coming out of prison, not only Lancaster County prison, but also state facilities coming back to Lancaster. And this organization is similar to like AA and NA, where those who have experienced addiction are the best people to help those who are coming through the process now, you know. And there's great mentors who have been incarcerated. One of the men from the program I ran, Denny Morgan, he is amazing. He's been involved with it for over 4 years. And if he sat down and told you his story, you would be like, wait, how in the world are you even here? But that's the thing about second chances. That's why in my opinion, everyone deserves a second chance. I don't care what offense that the person committed, they deserve a second chance. You know, when you come from a faith perspective, we don't believe in the eye for an eye. We believe in grace. We believe in mercy. We believe in forgiveness. And some of the work that I've done since I've been out, so I've been out just over 9 years now. April 1st was my 9-year freedom anniversary. So in that time, I've been able to do so much. You know, I've had so many doors open for me. I graduated college. I got married almost 7 years ago. My wife and I, we have a 17-month-old son. And I tell people all the time, that is what a second chance looks like. Because if I didn't make parole April 1st, 2013, I would still be in prison until October 27th, 2024. But because I was given that second chance, I was able to come out and show that I had been rehabilitated, that I took advantage of the time that I had, that I prepared myself. While I was incarcerated, I got my GED, I got a drafting trade, I got a master's of theology through an unaccredited school. I was doing all these things to better myself and improve myself. And here in Pennsylvania, these men and women that we're fighting for at Straight Ahead have done the same thing. Some of them, though, are going up on their 30th year of incarceration or 40th year or 50th year of incarceration. And it's like, when is enough? How much more punishment do they have to experience? You know, when do we say, okay, they have been rehabilitated. Let's give them that opportunity to come out and to walk with them, you know? One thing that I always love to talk about is people ask me, what's the best type of prison ministry? And I tell them, it's not going into prison once a month, preaching the word at somebody, or speaking at somebody. What it is it's going in 6 months to a year before they get out, creating a relationship with them, mentoring them. So when they get out, you can walk with them. Amos 3:3 says, can two walk together unless they be agreed? And that's what it is, it's that ability to walk with somebody. And when you have this village around this individual, most people who are incarcerated have never had people speak life into them, have never told them, you can do whatever you put your mind to. You can go to college. You can do this job. You can do that job. So earlier this week, Wednesday and Thursday of this past week, I was in California. I was in Lompoc. Have anybody heard of Lompoc? They have a federal prison there. So I was in this federal prison. They have 3 different camps. Me and a colleague were able to go in there, and we were able to talk to these men about our stories. We shared our reentry experiences. We shared how the community, places like UUCL, poured into us. The church I went to when I got out in Alabama, they were instrumental in me being where I am today. Because they didn't judge me. They didn't look at me as a murderer. They looked at me as David Garlock. And that's what's so powerful, because so many times we want to label somebody who has a background. We want to say, you're a convict, you're a felon, you're this, you're that. But Brian Stevenson says you're not as bad as the worst thing you've ever done. So I am a husband. I'm a father. I'm a college graduate. I will never tell anybody that I'm a murderer. I will never tell anybody that I'm a convict or a felon, etc. Because that just dehumanizes me. We have all been created in the image of God. And that's what I am, that imago Dei. And that's what's so important, when you have the opportunity to reach out to people that are coming home. So one thing that Straight Ahead is doing is we're doing a lot of work around a lifer bill and a geriatric medical parole bill. So how many of you guys get the UU legislative emails? A couple people, okay. So next week on Wednesday, May 25th, we're having a rally in Harrisburg. Have anybody heard of CADB, the Coalition to Abolish Death by Incarceration? Okay, a couple. So we're partnering with them. And what we're doing is we're going to Harrisburg, and we're going to have different people, different legislators speak about these laws, about these men and women that have spent decades in prison. And we're working to free them or give them the ability to have a parole date, And that's what doing justice, like it said in Micah 6:8, is being involved. It's showing up at events like this. How many of you guys have ever done a legislative visit, either virtually or in person? Okay. How many of you guys want to do, those who have raised your hand and who haven't raised your hand, who would want to? Okay. So I actually have a sign-up sheet that I'd love to have you all signed up. Okay, the people who didn't raise your hand, do you know what legislative visits are? So legislative visits, especially what we're doing, is we're meeting with senators and representatives, and we're talking to them about these different bills that we're trying to pass. Now, I know majority of you are going to raise your hand when I say, are you guys voting on May 17th? Everybody's going to raise their hand. But another thing about voting is you are a constituent. You have power to meet with your representative and senator and say, I love this bill, or I hate this bill, you need to do this, you need to do that, In my position, I do a lot of speaking in universities, sharing about Straight Ahead and trying to get college students to get involved in these legislative visits. a lot of times they didn't know they had that power to reach out to their senator and their representative and to set up a meeting, and it's so empowering when I see the excitement and the drive and passion that they have, and I just would love for you guys to be able to have that same opportunity to have these different meetings. And just so you know, with these meetings, so I do a lot of the grassroots lobbying, so I'm going to help you send out the different emails to set up these meetings, and I'm also going to connect you with different family members of people serving life without parole to be in the meeting with you to share their stories. Because one thing I know is data and stories go together. Data makes a person think, stories make you feel. And when they have that, that's when action begins, And with this community, the community you have here, UUCL, I would definitely reach out to Kitty and find out different ways that you can get involved with the men and women that are coming home from Lancaster County Prison and from the state prison, because a place of faith is so important for people coming home. They need that place where they fit in, where they're accepted. And I know that the UU does a lot of work around reentry, a lot of work around people that are coming home from prison, and that's one thing that, when I've met Kitty and other people that go to UU churches, I see the passion. I see the love for the marginalized people. And there's, when I was in prison in Alabama, there were actually some churches that would come into prison and preach. And when I knocked on that door when I got out of prison, do you know what happened? They didn't want me there. I'm like, where's the love? Where's the acceptance? But it just made me feel like their prison ministry was just to check off a box, and we can't get to that point where it's just about actions. It's just about, oh, I did this, so I'm good, We have to live it out every day, That's why Micah 6:8, I have it tattooed on my back because it's just so powerful, And it's talking about do justly, do justice, We have that opportunity to do justice every day. Not the punitive type of justice, but as Michelle talked about, that restorative justice, And that's really what I love to talk about. When you think about people who are abolitionists, have anybody heard the term abolitionist when it comes to prisons? Now, I just want you to let you know that abolitionists do not believe that there should not be punishment. Sometimes that's what people think, like they think that, oh, people commit crime, they don't need to be held accountable. They believe in restorative and transformative justice, and really the main word as far as restorative justice is the word shalom, peace, wholeness. And that's what restorative justice is about. It's not just wholeness and peace for the person who committed the offense, but it's for the victim and it's for the community. This is a type of justice that brings everybody together to have this place of wholeness and unity. And that's really what we need, especially in 2022. Look at the situation that happened yesterday in Buffalo. That community needs that peace, needs that unity, needs that wholeness. So I will open it up for questions.
We're going to have a hymn first, but
Huh?
we're going to have a hymn first.
Oh, okay, a hymn first.
So that you have a moment or two to reflect on everything our guest has just said. We invite you to rise in body or in spirit to sing Amazing Grace, which is number 205 in the Gray Hymnal. And then we will have time for questions.
Oh, snap. I have to I'll read the poem.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch
for some questions for David. Could you hear that? We do have some time for some questions for David. I just want to acknowledge the people who are joining us on Zoom, and I'm so sorry I forgot to have us wave to you earlier. Please, let's wave to the people on Zoom. We are a fully multi-platform community of worship now, so we know that you are here with us, and I see you.
I do too.
We want you to be able to ask questions, so I'm actually going to see if I can pull them up so that if they do come in on Zoom, we can pose them to David. But
before your question, ma'am, I forgot to read this poem I wanted to read to you. So I love writing poetry. It's something that was so powerful and healing and continues to be. Society is always saying change is not possible. They're too broken and fixing them would cost too much. Let's just get them out of sight and make them do their time in prison. We don't have to deal with them and we can begin healing from the hurt. Out of sight, out of mind. But is that the reality and totality of the situation, or is it the frailty of our system? Thoughts like this plague those who possess a heart, because change truly is possible. A second chance where one is transformed, reformed, and conformed, not to the image of God, of man, but to the image of God. One returns to the created state, not by mere faith, but by making that which was crooked straight. The process is about refining, defining, and reminding them about the purpose they were called to, one that focuses on wholeness and unity. It has its start when in the heart the thought is conceived, received, and believed. The traction begins with an action. Our future is sealed. Now it's time to see the fruit we yield. Change is possible when it is nourished and believed in.
So if you have a question, raise your hand and I'll come to you with the mic. And for folks on Zoom, if you have a question, put it into the chat and I'll be able to see it right here.
Hi. So I have a sister and I have some friends who have a felony. They committed a crime, served their time, got out. And they got education, but with the felony on their record and being black as opposed to white, they're not having the luck. One's going back to drugs. And so what does the program do for those situations where a felony on your record, even with an education, and it was like 10, 15 years ago, doesn't allow them to make the change and they just keep falling backwards?
Well, I'd say one of the main things with that is just to try to find out businesses that will hire formerly incarcerated people that won't judge somebody on their past. When I was working for the program here in Lancaster, the population that we worked with were people who committed sexual offenses. So this was the hardest population to find jobs for. And it took me a month and a half to get my first job. And that job I only had for 1 day and 2 hours. Because the second day, the general manager's like, "Oh, you have a felony, tell me more about it." And I'm like, "This is what happened." She's like, "I'm sorry that happened to you, but you're fired." So, I know what that is.
She has a degree in social work. They won't hire her. So she's like, you said, former drug addicts should help those. And that's what she wants to do, but it's so hard. They don't get manufacturing jobs.
Yeah.
It's hard. Get good jobs with their education, not just manufacturing.
Where?
Manual labor.
Do they live here in Lancaster?
Lancaster, yep.
Has she gone by Career Link?
Yes, many times.
Has she worked with the new person that's over, Christine Marr?
I don't know.
Yeah, definitely have her go to Career Link and work with Christine, and they can definitely work on that. Another thing that is really going in the right direction is that there are people that are fighting to have the licensure for people who have felony backgrounds. So right now there's like social work, even barbering. People who have a background can't become barbers. And this is a trade that they teach you in prison. And they're teaching you a trade that you can't use when you get out. It's like, what type of sense does that make, So there is a lot of push right now towards that. There's a lot of push towards banning the box. So banning the box means that when you apply for the job, they cannot ask you about a felony background. Now, further along the process, they can, just to make sure that whatever crime you committed doesn't interfere with the type of work. Like, so if you robbed a bank and you're trying to get a job as a bank teller, they're going to be like, no, you can't come work at this bank right now because you did this. But it's not going to be something where it's just a blanket denial just because you committed a felony. Lancaster City bans the box. Lancaster County doesn't. So, but
So
definitely have her reach out to Christine Moore and Maher. And so she's at the career link here in Lancaster.
So we have 2 questions that came in from Zoom. I'm going to read them to you and let you decide how you want to answer them. But one is asking about women's prisons and if there's a difference that we should be aware of. And then someone else was asking, essentially, how can we express these ideas simply to family members? And I'm thinking maybe it's family or friends who maybe don't see it the same way.
When we think about women's incarceration is one of the fastest growing incarcerations in the past 15 to 20 years. It's grown by about 720%. When you think about that, 90% of women have adverse childhood experiences, adverse trauma that they've experienced. There's a lot of women right now up at SCI Muncie serving life without parole sentences because they were in a domestic violence situation or they were being sexually abused and they took the life of their abuser. As I said earlier, they aren't looked at as a victim. They're only looked at as an offender. So there's a lot that we can do there. One thing that you can do here in Lancaster is there's Representative Mike Jones. He's a conservative representative from York County. He's putting forth a bill called the Dignity for Incarcerated Women bill. So what this bill would do is it would give all women hygiene products free. Right now they have to pay for them. If you're indigent, they're using socks, they're using toilet paper, they're using all these other things, which is unsanitary and should not be happening. So you can definitely look into that. And it also is going to take away shackling pregnant women and allow them at least 1 or 2 days with their child before they're taken away to their family. So, I mean, it's something that you would think should have done 10, 20, 30 years ago. But it's taken that time to actually get it done. And when we think about that too, is most of the women that are incarcerated have children. So just imagine being away from your child and you're either in the county jail or prison, So it's definitely important. I'd also say there's a lot of pen pal organizations. Straight Ahead is actually doing a pen pal thing, I think next week or the following week, So if you're interested in that, you can go to our website, straightahead.org, and find the pen pal thing that we're doing next week. And I'm going to tell you one thing. Getting letters in the mail is so powerful. It connects you to society. It gives you that warmth that you need. It gives you that ability to know that somebody cares about you. Because when you're in prison, you're a number. For 13 and a half years, I was 21, 45, 79. That's when they called mail, that is what they would say. They wouldn't say David, they wouldn't say David Garlock, they would just say 21, 45, 79. I was a number. So if you guys have the capacity, I would definitely recommend writing, being a pen pal. And I'm going to tell you one thing. It's not going to benefit them. It's also going to benefit you too. Because you're going to be able to help that person see themselves as a human being. You're going to be able to share that love and grow close to this person. And you're going to be able to offer that support when they need it. The second question as far as family and stuff. That's a loaded question. I think when you're talking to family, I think a lot of that is you just have to chip away at it, where there's going to be certain victories in conversations that you have around mass incarceration, because you have such a wide variety of people and beliefs, like I was in Scranton yesterday. We were doing a video series for Straight Ahead where I was interviewing total strangers and talking to them about life without parole, elders in prison, second chances. And there was this one gentleman who said they need to bring back the electric chair. And I'm thinking, okay, that's not really where we wanted to go, but that's the thing, so many people have different thoughts, and their processes, I'm on Twitter a whole bunch, and I come across a lot of people who are so adamant about the death penalty. And so it's just having these conversations and just sharing data with people, talking with them, and just allowing them to be proximate, A lot of these representatives and senators, what we're trying to get them to do is we want them to go to a prison. We want them to go in and sit down and talk to these men and women in prison. The Representative Mike Jones that I told you about and the Dignity for Incarcerated Women bill, do you know how he got passionate about criminal justice reform? He went to SCI Muncie for the first time 3.5 years ago. So he went into this women's prison, he sat down, and he talked to these women who were serving life without parole. He was talked to these women who had been locked up 20, 30, 40 years. And it tugged at his heart because he was proximate. He was in the presence of these individuals, these human beings. They could no longer be a number to him because he knew their name now.
I think we could take maybe one more question, and then I'm thinking David will probably be around after the service if anyone wants to ask him. I'm not sure who raised their hand first.
Hi, good morning. My name is Robin Garrett, and I'm a visitor from the UU congregation in Westchester. And I don't really have a question. This is a promo. And David didn't ask me to do this, but I have to tell you, less than 2 years ago, whether you believe in fate or luck or God or grace or the universe or the goddess, I'm a long-time UU. I can use multiple language. But I became deeply aware about mass incarceration and am now passionate about spending time on it. I can promise you, if you can manage to go to Harrisburg next Wednesday, and it's a lot easier drive for you all than it is for me, it will change your life. The people I've encountered doing this work, it's just amazing. And I'm not doing a lot. And one of the reasons I'm here is because you have a Justice with Mercy group, and you're working on restorative justice. Problem organizing among UUs in Chester County is you all are pretty much the only game in town here in Lancaster County. We're spread among many congregations, and so people are called in a lot of directions. You also have a power here in this county. Chester County's gone blue. We have almost all Democrats. Well, it can be exciting, but it means our votes don't mean as much. Whereas if you live in the district of a Republican senator or a Republican representative, you're the constituent who can say, I'm your constituent, I vote, and this is not a partisan issue. It's about compassion and common sense, because even if it's just money, it wastes a lot of money keeping people in prison. So I cheated, I didn't ask a question, and I thank you.
Yeah. And one thing to know too, if any of you guys are interested in going on the 25th and you need transportation, I'm kind of overseeing the transportation for folks in Chester County and Lancaster County. So you can always give me your information too, and I'll let you know and put you in contact with people who are going from Lancaster.
This isn't a question, it's a story. And a lot of you remember Justin Jenkins, and he worked for me fixing up houses and stuff, Kate Diller's grandson. And, okay, anyway, fell in with a bad crowd, robbed some places. He got 9 months in prison. So he could have gotten a lot longer. He called me up a couple months ago. He said, "You want to go out to lunch?" I said, "Okay." So we went out to lunch. He's going to Widener, getting his PhD. He's getting married. And I thought he could be in prison, but instead, you know.
Yeah, I'm friends with Justin.
Does anyone else have a question for our speaker?
Michelle.
Or Kitty, I know Kitty had something you wanted to ask too.
Thank you.
Just wanted Dave to tell us how many people are incarcerated in Pennsylvania for life without parole.
So let me put it this way. In the United States, there are 55,000 people serving life without parole. In Pennsylvania, we have 10% of that population. 5,447 people serving life without parole. There's only one state that has more people serving life without parole than Pennsylvania. Can y'all guess? Texas? No. Mississippi? No. No. Huh? No. Wait, what? Yes, Florida. So what's funny is I do a lot of public speaking, so I've spoken about 45 universities across the country. And I was actually in Texas early in February, and the professor of this class was a former warden at the Department of Corrections in Texas. And he told me Texas has 130,000 people incarcerated. 130,000 people incarcerated, but only 1,000 people serving life without parole. So remember those numbers, 130 and 1,000. Pennsylvania, we have 5,447 people serving life without parole, and only 38,000 people incarcerated. The reason we have so many people incarcerated is life without parole is a mandatory sentence for first and second degree murder. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. If I had committed my offense in Pennsylvania, I would have gotten life without parole. But Alabama has better laws than Pennsylvania, which is kind of crazy to say because Alabama. But, you know, and I tell that to representatives and senators and they laugh at it, you know, but I'm like, it's the truth. Because I'd probably say if the people that committed, if these 5,447 people were all in Alabama, there'd probably only be about 750 of them would have received life without parole sentences. Because another thing to think about is this, you know, second degree murder, say me, Michelle, and Kitty and Robin are all out somewhere and Robin kills somebody, Michelle, Kitty, and I are all going to get life without parole sentences because we were with her. We might not have known that she was going to do anything, but just because we were with her, we're going to be charged with second degree murder and have life without parole. And that's why we're fighting for these individuals with life without parole. Because not all of them are individuals who are mass murderers or different things like that. You know, you have 1,100 people serving life without parole for second degree murder. About 650 of those are accomplices.
Is this on? Okay. I want to say thank you, David, and I'm going to invite you here to do something that I'm trying to get folks to practice here. There was one more question that came in, and I'm going to invite you to answer it in 15 words or less. Or maybe a little bit more if you need it. But somebody, and I would really love to know the answer to this, is what was it that you felt that helped you to grow while you were incarcerated?
God. One word.
What is God to you?
He is a creator. He is my best friend, you know. He is there whenever I need him, While I was incarcerated, my mom, my dad, my grandma, my sister all passed away. So it was that comfort, One of the passages that I always talk about in the Bible is 2 Corinthians 1, 3, and 4. It says, God is God of all comforts and tender mercies, and he comforts us so we can comfort others. And the reason that I share my story, in universities I go more in depth, as far as some of the abuse and stuff like that, is because there's so many times where a girl or a guy, after I speak, comes up and they're like, David, thank you for sharing your story. Let me tell you what happened to me when I was 4 or 8 or 12. And it's so powerful to know that I was able to be used as that thing to create the healing process for this other individual, and it's so powerful.
Thank you. And I'm hoping you'll maybe stay afterwards if anyone wants to come up to you for questions. But
yeah, I will definitely stay around for a bit.
Yeah, thank you so much. As we close out our service today, I remind us that we are a community of many different people, and each of us brings different gifts, skills, and commitments to this community. And we need all of you and all of your skills and commitments to make this community work. And sometimes we do need money too to make it work. But I want you to know that your worth and dignity is in no way measured by the amount of money that you have ever to give this community. That's why we also invite you, if you wish, to place during our offering into the basket one of the visitor cards or a note that tells us about ways that you would like to get involved and what you would like to do to grow love here. Today we honor our own commitment to act for justice by sharing half of our offering with The Mix, which is a local organization that inspires youth and empowers families by running an after-school program and summer day camp for children. We take an offering now as an outward expression of our interdependence. And if you wish, you can also support our work by texting the amount of your donation to 855-927-3685 or through the Contribute tab on our website. And if you are a guest here coming for the first time, or you forgot to carry cash, because who does these days, it's okay. Thank you for being with us. I invite you to stay after the post-lid. We're going to have a town hall meeting to talk about the future shape of our sanctuary and some other things as well. But for now, David will extinguish our chalice for us, inviting you all to go out into the world, or remain in the pews for the moment, to take the lessons and to apply the compassion and the love that you have gained here today and cultivated here in this space. And remember the words of Henry Nouwen, the queer French Catholic priest who taught us that we are all wounded healers. So to go out into the world and be one of those healers who heals. Remember that we are all wounded healers, and that it is our job to heal a broken world with our love. Go in peace.